The Virginia House of Delegates and the legislature's in session. And they're used to doing some crazy stuff. You remember transvaginal ultrasounds. You remember voter suppression. Well, I got a new one for you. The majority of Republicans walk out on a vote for Tracy Thorne Baglin, who would be who was a gay judge who was up for nomination. He was confirmed because Democrats stood up and said we're going to support him. But Republicans decided they were going to walk out. They would leave the duty that they have and walk out. But I'm not the one to talk about this. We're joined on the phone with the expert of all things Virginia politics and progressive blogger Ben Tribbett. Welcome to the Fowler Show, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So your blog picked up this story about the fact that 12 Republicans, almost half of their caucus, decided to walk out. Explain this to me, because I think the people that are listening and watching tonight, they're baffled. Because I am.
The Senate, of Virginia is 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats currently, and the majority leader for the Republicans is actually one of their more moderate members. And so, one of the traditions in the state Senate versus the House of Delegates is on judges, when they want to not support a judge, they do not vote rather than voting no. In the House of Delegates, people will vote no. In the Senate, by tradition, they don't vote because judges are required to receive a majority vote of the chamber regardless of how many votes. So they need 21 votes regardless of the number voting. So the majority leader stood up and reminded his colleagues of this tradition, and over half of his caucus stood up and walked out of the room.
Wow. They just got up and walked out. Now, the interesting thing here, and to get into sort of what you call the electoral nuts and bolts, or how this sort of happens, is that, and if you could explain this to our listeners and our viewers tonight, is the whole ideal of how it works. So you have to get, like you said earlier, 21 votes, or a majority of the caucus.
A majority of the Senate, correct.
A majority of the Senate to win, or to be nominated as a judge. Mm-hmm. But people are allowed to abstain by leaving the room.
Well, usually they abstain by just
vote,
sitting at their desk.
That's a present vote would be the same.
Right, but by Senate tradition, they would just sit there and not cast a ballot. Not abstain, not cast anything. In this case, they actually stood up and walked out, which I couldn't find any record or history of this ever happening before in this kind of number.
And so there are 20. So there's one Republican who joined the Democrats in voting for
8. There's 20 to 20. So there were 12 of the 20 Republicans walked out.
Okay. I'm saying not those that state that vote, but I'm saying those that voted yes. So there was 21 yes votes.
There were 28 yes votes.
Okay, so 8 Republicans joined their Democratic colleagues to vote for this justice because, and I think you agree with me here, Ben. I think it's about whether or not you can interpret the law and you could be a fair judge, and not whether it's not who you sleep with in the bedroom.
Well, ironically, this is a very low-level judge position. So this is a judge that deals with traffic court, which made the whole controversy so strange that Republicans would be so upset that you could have a gay judge that was dealing with traffic cases.
I don't know, maybe he'll have some leniency and maybe have some liberal leniency when it comes to figuring out how many points you get in your driver's license.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think and this, to me at least, as a Virginia voter and somebody who's sort of keyed into what's happening in Virginia, but a lot of listeners aren't. The fact that we're still having a conversation about whether or not, a gay judge can do the job of a straight judge sort of pushes us into where we go in this 2013 election when it comes to the gubernatorial candidates. And folks who don't know, the Republicans have decided to go with the farthest to the farthest to the farthest right of their caucus, or I would say of their party, and nominate Ken Cuccinelli, who by far is the most radical right-wing Republican that exists. I would say I wouldn't say in Virginia because I think that would be too far of a statement, but in elected office in Virginia. And what does that sort of say, Ben, in your mind, and the fact that these 12 Republicans decided to walk out today of where the Republican Party is going?
Well, the Republican Party in Virginia is certainly captive to the far right. They have been for decades, really since 1994 when Oliver North won their nomination for the Senate. Conservatives have controlled virtually all of the nominating processes in the Virginia Republican Party. And they have, every cycle, tried something a little bit more conservative. And when they lose an election, it's because they were not conservative enough, as they'll say. when they win an election, that is a mandate to become more conservative, and the cycle goes on and on. And so every 4 years, they seem to put up an even more conservative ticket. And in the case of Cuccinelli, he's been described as Tea Party before there was a Tea Party, and I think that's a pretty accurate description of him.
But and I think you're right on this. But to put it all into play, it seems as though the Republicans feel that they can go all the way to the right, and still garner a win and win this gubernatorial race. That's the only reason that would explain, in my mind at least, as to why 12 senators would walk out of a vote on somebody who's handling traffic tickets.
Right, and I think that, in a lot of cases, these districts, in the case of the senators, their districts are gerrymandered. They're much more concerned about a Republican primary than they are about a general election, and this would play large with Republican primary voters. In the case of Cuccinelli, he won 3 times in the state Senate in a district in Fairfax County, which is, a fairly liberal county, as well as winning 58% of the vote for Attorney General. So he's not going to be an easy person to defeat. He seems to have gotten through his career some appeal that is broader than his ideology, and that's been his danger. And so that, to me, is the challenge this year that Democrats are going to face, is trying to unlock these voters that ideologically are not compatible with Cuccinelli that have been supporting him now for 10 years.
And in your opinion, what happens to those Obama voters and all the 51 million people, or not 51 million, but that's nationwide, but the million people additional that voted for the president over Mitt Romney? Where do they sort of fall on this gubernatorial landscape, knowing that the Democrats have all sort of locked in their nominee as well as Terry McAuliffe, former DNC chair and best friend to Bill Clinton?
Well, the biggest challenge with the Obama electorate in Virginia is that obviously our elections are held in off years, and the Virginia off-year cycle started almost 100 years ago as a way to discourage lower turnout voters from participating. It was started for that purpose, and it's been kept in place for that purpose. So the younger voters tend not to participate in Virginia gubernatorial elections, and that moves the state dramatically to the right in terms of who's participating. So the participation this year will probably be the determining factor in whether Terry McAuliffe or Ken Cuccinelli is elected governor. Because if they do participate, I can't imagine that a lot of those voters would side with Cuccinelli. But if they choose not to participate in the electorate, you could definitely see a path for Cuccinelli to win.